We're going to get started here. I know we're going to have some members trickle in as the meeting is going, but we got 3 presentations today, so we're going to start sharply here at 9. At this time, I'm going to ask the secretary to call the roll. Or do we want to wait till we have a few more members trickle in?
It's up to you.
We'll call it, and then as they come in, we'll get them.
Senator McGarvey.
Present from the district.
Senator Schroeder.
Present remotely.
Senator Smith. Representative Gentry. Representative Hale.
Present here in the room.
Representative Kulkarni.
Present from the district.
Representative Maddox. Representative Rowland.
Present remotely.
Senator McDaniel. Representative Petrie. Representative Reed. Representative Weber. Representative Beckler.
Present remotely.
Chair Caslin.
Present in the room. So at this time, I think we have enough for a quorum. And do we want to approve the minutes from the last meeting before we get going? We have a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those alike. Opposed? Okay, so at this time, we are going to start with Representative Pratt. He's going to come forward at this time and discuss his data center bill. And looks like we have a few esteemed guests joining him here at this time. If you all, when you get to your seats, if you will identify yourself for the record, we're going to turn it over to you all. We'd ask all members to hold their questions to the end of the presentation. And if you are remoted in, if you can let us know through the app if you want to speak, we will make sure you get called on. Representative Pratt, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Caslin. Thank you for having us today, committee members. We're going to talk today about data centers. This was a bill that was passed last session, and we're going to discuss it again. Actually passed, got vetoed, so hopefully we're going to avoid that this year. Basic data centers they generate income and business taxes, create additional property taxes, improve local revenue. Data centers are recession-proof. And again, when I say recession-proof, actually last night when I got home, there was a package on my door, which my daughter and my wife, one or two, had ordered. So it is without doubt, ongoing business with engineering, technical, electrical, and construction jobs at competitive salaries. In states where companies like Google and Facebook have built data centers, the massive facilities employees contribute significantly to local taxes. Most of these employ well over 100 people. Almost everyone that works there makes over $100,000 a year. They buy 300 and 400 acres to build these on. It promotes broadband expansion and enhances existing network infrastructure. This is absolutely something that I think it will be a great boom for the state and something that we definitely need. I'm Phil Pratt, and this is my guest is Lauren. Introduce yourself.
Lauren Hogan, representing NetChoice.
Bob Babbage, co-founder, also representing NetChoice.
Mr. Babbage.
Well, thank you all for taking up this subject today. A couple of points to start with, Chairman Caslin. Earlier this summer, early June, an RFP service called Bumblebee advised the 50 states that there were 5 $800 million projects from one company that would be decided over the course of July, August, and September. We're not in that consideration because we haven't moved this law to the books yet. About 20 states are. The one handout you have in your packet today, is from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which last week, after 2 years of work, passed a GOP-sponsored data centers bill with an enthusiastic signature from a Democratic governor. It's the cleanest and most positive data centers incentive bill in the nation. That's the mission before you. And we thank Chairman Pratt for his work on this. Secretary Hayes, just in the last couple of weeks, commented to another legislative committee about his support for the bill that was passed. We certainly appreciate Commissioner Jeff Taylor. And for any member who has any question on this, ask a local economic development director in your region. We've had tremendous support from Matt Tackett and the KAED, John Bevington, who was Governor Bevin's Commissioner of Economic Development, now with LG&E, KU, and the chair of KAED will give you great advice on how this can work to the positive. Chairman Weber, thank you for your support all along. To Chairman McDaniel for his forward thinking about technology jobs, and how we grow the economy of the future. For the administration's purposes, there were voices concerned about any economic loss. There is no loss. The state doesn't write a check. The state doesn't move money to companies to make this work. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Until they reach the threshold in Chairman Pratt's bill of $150 million and prove conclusively that the project is going to work, there's no incentive whatsoever. That's a very good feature in your bill and one worth noting. Also, to Representative Meredith's work on the economy of the future, the legislature is thinking smartly and in a very aggressive way about how we grow the economy that is happening in other places and happening in many places in Kentucky and can happen more. Regrettably, and I'm sorry that this happened, you received information from a think tank that dissuaded some members from supporting the data centers bill in its final form. There were errors in that statement. That statement was designed to make the proposal look bad. That's not intellectually honest. It was not fair to you, it was not fair to the process, and certainly not fair to the sponsor. There were other factual errors in the work of that group that should be corrected if they repeat them. And if they come to this table or any other table in this building, Chairman Pratt should have the chance to explain why those assumptions are wrong. They worked from a bias to reach conclusions, and that was not fair to this legislature or anybody else. I'm sorry to have to say that. Never in 22 years have I had to challenge something so directly, but it was not information that helped the process or served the process due to its inaccuracy. With that, we would say on a very positive note, you're on the right track. We believe strongly you're doing the right thing. And on behalf of NetChoice, an organization which represents major technology companies and investors in this country, companies who are interested in Kentucky, we hope that this gets early action in 2022 and paves the way for good results. Thank you, sir.
Be glad to answer any questions from the committee.
At this time, do we have any members got any questions, or anybody remotely that has any questions? If you can wait till after the ones in the room. Representative Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Pratt and Mr. Babbage and Lauren for being here today and presenting this. The data center bill was a good piece of legislation, and I'm happy to see you, Bob, address some of the issues that materialized late in the session on this may have contributed to the veto of the bill, which is unfortunate. A couple of weeks ago, during a full meeting of the Economic Development Committee, as you said, we heard from Secretary Larry Hayes with the Economic Development Cabinet that they support this bill. And they supported it, and it was a good bill, and they saw the benefits to it. It was unfortunate that the governor did not choose to discuss with his own cabinet their support for the bill, and he vetoed it. I say all that to say, as I'm looking over this press release that's in our packet today from Pennsylvania, it's just unfortunate and sad that we are missing an opportunity in this state. As Representative Pratt said, Mr. Chairman, these are good paying jobs, and these are jobs that would be a great benefit to rural areas in the state. These data centers are looking for rural areas. They're not looking for necessarily the golden triangle that we hear referenced in this state, but they're looking in areas in rural Kentucky where jobs that pay over $100,000 per year, and they may get upwards of 100 of those jobs at facilities. And they can retool existing facilities that may be dormant and unused. Those can be retooled to fit this purpose. And so, I circle back to say a great opportunity was missed in 2021, but I'm happy to hear that this bill will be coming back in the 2022 session. I think we need to move on it at the earliest possible date to take full advantage of the opportunity that we have here. And I make a prediction: this bill will pass in the 2022 session. And I'm going to be a part of that, and I look forward to working with you, Representative Pratt, and the folks that are with you today. We need this bill. It's sad we missed that opportunity this last year.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Weber. But also, this bill is designed so that if you want the best economic return, best incentives, you have to move to the smaller economic impact zones. And that's why we tailored it so that it would move out to the smaller counties to help those, without doubt, and create good paying jobs.
If I might, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the notion that was put forth by one group that the state could lose money, that perhaps prompted another cabinet, not economic development, to express concern to the governor's office, is simply not the case. The bill is structured in a way that the state does not suffer a loss. There's no check to a company. It's completely the other. The company has to perform to make this happen. Also, these companies are insisting on renewable energy. Another assertion was that this is going to raise electric rates. In fact, around the country, because of the renewable factor put into a market, the electric rates or utility rates are stabilized for 10 to 15 years, something that I think LG&E KU would back up. They have the capacity to do that in many places in the state, and they'll tell you that it's very much a positive to the entire economy in terms of rates and stabilization of rates for years to come.
Do we have any other questions from any members or anybody online? Representative Pat, Lauren, Bob, I appreciate your presentation. I remember late in the session last year in front of A&R, you just kind of describing this and going over it, and it was exciting to hear about the opportunities that we could see here in Kentucky. And so hopefully we can get this all the way across the finish line in the upcoming sessions. So thank you all for your presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members, for allowing us to testify today.
So at this time, we're going to have Senator McDaniels is going to be presenting to us on his remote worker bill. And at this time, Senator McDaniels, if you come forward, announce yourself for the record. The floor is yours, buddy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to see you today. Members of the committee, appreciate your time. Much the same as Representative Pratt and his guests testified, he was kind enough last year in conversations with me to allow me to sub into his data center bill, something that's very much related to it, which deals with remote workers. You know, in his book, Before the First Shots Are Fired, General Anthony Zinni, who had been the commander of the United States Central Command, actually when I was in the military, makes a statement about organizations that's been made many times about things that evolve, which is things that survive are not necessarily the smartest, they're not necessarily the strongest, but they're the most adaptable. The same applies to economies and to states. And to that end, we are in a place where we have to recognize the prolific nature of remote work. In an article by Forbes magazine recently, prior to COVID-19, 17% of workers had some form of remote work available to them. In April of this year, 44% of all workers were working 5 days a week remotely. The estimates are that by 2025, roughly 22% of all jobs will be remote jobs full-time. That's an 87% increase from simply 5 years earlier. So as we recognize these things, we have to evolve, and we have to recognize some of the emerging trends, the biggest of which is it does not matter where a remote worker lives. They get to make that choice. It's not like when most of us entered the workforce and we had to be in a physical location where our employer was. In fact, in my own family, I have family members who work in Seattle and live in Taylor Mill, Kentucky. I have family members who work in Los Angeles but live in Honolulu. And these are the types of things that occur in a very rapidly evolving economy. And there are states across the nation with incentives to attract these workers, and these workers are in all kinds of places. They're in finance, tutoring, translation, customer service. Those are traditional industries that have been around for decades, if not centuries. But in some of the new realms, cybersecurity, digital marketing, things like that, those are workers who are also engaged in this environment. So the bill from last year, which I had originally worked on, and Chairman Petrie got involved and gave me some ideas to further advance it, basically identifies a remote worker as someone working from his or her principal residence in Kentucky for a business entity that is only doing business through the presence of employees located in this state. They have to be a full-time employee working at least 35 hours a week and have moved into this state after January the 1st of 2021, or been a student at a college or university in Kentucky who remains in this state, or a member of the armed forces who receives a military discharge. So particularly to benefit the large community of contractors who emerge from places like Fort Campbell. And to further incentivize people to locate in our more rural regions. As you know, with the loss of actually physically present jobs in a lot of our rural regions, they would greatly benefit by having these workers come into their communities. 100% of the credit would go to those folks if they were in the lowest density communities, working its way down to 90 and then 80 for the highest density communities. But if you were in an economic opportunity zone, which are some of our most disadvantaged urban communities, those folks would be eligible for 100% of the credit. And the way the credit would work is this. Your first year of residence, it's a $5,000 credit, working its way down to $4,000 the second year, then $3,000, then $2,000, then $1,000, ultimately phasing out to nothing. And if you bought a place of residence while you were here, your first year's taxes would be refunded to you. So the goal of the policy is not just a one-time giveaway. Northwest Arkansas has a one-time $10,000 relocation bonus, which how a lot of these things are structured. But we don't want people to come and just leave. We want this to be a long-term shift for the Commonwealth. So the goal is to get young people here, get them to stay here, have them put down roots here and start a family, and then remain here for the balance of their working careers. So it's a simple concept. Unfortunately, much like the underlying legislation, it suffered the governor's veto on the last possible day. But it's very much a reality, and it's very much a necessity if we're going to attract that ever-growing breadth of the workforce that is purely remote. So, Mr. Chairman, I do thank you for your indulgence today. Those are the mechanics of how the bill works and the necessity behind it, and I'd gladly entertain any questions.
Chairman McDaniels, thank you for the presentation and your all's work on this bill. We definitely know that the remote worker is something that we've seen really elevated during COVID, and a lot of businesses around the country have realized the success that actually comes from that and the value of life that it gives people in different communities and opportunity across the state for those to work in our bigger cities and still live in areas all across the Commonwealth. And so at this time, is there any members who have any questions or comments about the presentation? In the room first, Representative. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman. Also, I just have a very quick, simple question. Maybe I missed this somewhere down. Did the governor give the reason for this veto? What was the reason for that? Or did he say that to anybody? I mean, I didn't never hear the reason really.
It was a fairly vague reference to, once again, some information that I don't think was exactly accurate that came out on the potential impacts of negative impacts of the financial scoring affiliated with it. It is a very rough one to score. I will very much be the first to admit that. But you're also talking about the difference in if we attract these young folks versus they're not here at all. And so it was a vague reference, in my opinion. I will say that Rocky Atkins did reach out in advance. I thought that we were going to have a little more conversation about that, but in advance meaning 2 hours before the veto came out. But nonetheless, it was a vague reference to the potential financial impact.
Just to follow up, as Representative Weber said, even referring back to the last presentation we heard, it's unfortunate that we had that happen to both of these pieces of legislation, which both of them actually passed pretty overwhelmingly in the chambers. But it's kind of unfortunate that we had to have those vetoed, and hopefully we can get those through and across both of them this coming session. So thank you for your work on that. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Representative Weber?
Sorry. Thank you, Senator McDaniel, for your discussion on that today. I look at these types of bills, as we've heard discussed today, as opportunities. Some people say tools in our tool chest, things available to us that can attract businesses here. Can you just give me an idea on how many states already have this in place? And if you said that, I apologize, but I've missed that. But how many? So we missed this opportunity in 2021. How many states are ahead of us right now on this area?
So it's an interesting dynamic because there are states and then there's also regions. Like there's a Northwest Arkansas Chamber Alliance or something that's actually offering their incentive. But there were at least 10 incentives that we found in our research behind the issue. And sadly enough, the day after the veto was announced, West Virginia passed their remote worker incentive to try to leapfrog us in the process. So I will tell you, there's at least probably at this point a dozen of these incentives, if not more, floating around out there. Heading into session, I will have a better answer to that question, though.
Good. And I do think there was a lot of misinformation that was circulated in those final days that I'll be happy to help get ahead of that in the coming session, because I agree, we do need this bill, and we need these opportunities available to folks. As we've learned, they do help the rural areas. They bring in quite a bit of financial benefit to areas in the state that really need that. And so I appreciate that, and it's good to know at least 10 incentive programs that you've identified. So thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Any other members at this time online that have any questions or comments? We have none at this time. So Chairman McDaniels, I appreciate your forward thinking here. Just looking over the horizon, seeing where our economy is going. You know, capitalism drives us in these directions, and I appreciate your willingness to try to get out in front of it, and we'll try again in 2021 to get it across the finish line. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
At this time, Commissioner Myers, and got some guests I think they're going to be coming to the table with you as well, is going to be presenting to us from the Department of Parks, kind of testifying and talking about the usage of our federal funds of COVID, the impacts and the financial attendant trends that we're seeing. At this time, we're going to turn it over to you all. If you can announce yourself for the record, and looks like you got a presentation you're going to have up.
Yes.
See if we can get that going here for everyone to see.
We do, and while we're getting that up, I want to introduce our team here. We have Commissioner Will Adams, have Danielle Jones, and B.R. Masters is with us. As y'all all probably know, B.R. from over here is our legislative liaison. I want to go off script just a minute and mention that I'm extremely sorry for all of us for our loss with Senator Tom Buford, and our prayers go out to his family. He was a great friend of mine and all of ours for a long time, and that's a tough loss that we all took, and be tough moving forward. But yeah, he left us in a good place with a lot of hard work for our community in Jessamine County and all the communities that he represented, and really our entire state. So serving from 1990 to now, that's a long time, and I'm proud of all the work that he did. So I just wanted to mention that, Senator, and thank you very much for having us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for those kind words. He'll be greatly
Yes,
missed.
sir. We ready to go, Danielle? She got her under control now. All right. Just want to give you a quick overview of, of our state parks, as we all are extremely proud of what we have here in the history of our state parks, and we know, our goals are to set us up for success for the future, and make good decisions moving forward. And we have a lot of needs. There's a lot of great things going on in our parks, as you'll hear today, but there's a lot of things we need to address too, as we all know, because we're all of our communities are touched in one way or another by our 45 state parks across our state. So I'll get started with the presentation now. Kentucky State Parks are committed to providing a sustainable system of parks that delivers quality programs, amenities, and services. Our goal is to create memorable experiences and a sense of place and preserve the historic and natural integrity and traditions of our parks for existing and future generations. Parks work to promote Kentucky as an inclusive travel experience that welcomes visitors of diverse backgrounds and interests. Our vision for Kentucky's park system is to build public and private partnerships to ensure that our parks bring both recreational and economic value to the communities throughout our Commonwealth. We are also committed to pursuing funding opportunities that will allow Kentucky State Parks to address the continuous maintenance needs of each state park. Lastly, our park staff works to protect and conserve Kentucky's natural resources and to be responsible stewards of the nation's finest state park system, while promoting these opportunities to tourists, sportsmen, and sportswomen. Established in 1924, Kentucky State Parks represent our state's commitment to preserving natural and historical sites throughout the Commonwealth for future generations to visit and enjoy. Today, Kentucky is home to 45 state parks, including 17 resorts spanning over 48,000 acres throughout the Commonwealth. State parks play a significant role in generating revenue for local communities. Park operations consist of 17 resort parks, 8 historic sites, 13 golf courses, 34 pools and beaches, 15 marinas, and 30 campgrounds. Throughout the state, we employ nearly 650 full-time employees in addition to hiring approximately 600 seasonal staff during the summer. Kentucky tourism is an $11.8 billion industry that brings millions of visitors to the Commonwealth each year. As one of the state's largest economic impactors, Kentucky tourism serves as a mechanism for driving economic growth in communities within all 120 of our counties. Outdoor recreation is also a major tourism attraction and economic booster for many communities throughout the Commonwealth. As a major tourism attraction and employer for many communities, state parks operate on an annual budget of $99.4 million. Kentucky's park system ranks third in the nation for revenue production with annual revenue of $53 million. Tennessee recently committed $100 million in capital budget improvements, which has allowed them to undertake and complete reconstruction of a couple of lodges. In 2019, state parks welcomed an estimated 7.9 million visitors, including 6.7 million day users and 1.6 million overnight guests. Parks fiscal year 19 operational revenue totaled over $45 million. Kentucky has taken an aggressive approach to prevent the spread of COVID-19 throughout the Commonwealth. The array of services provided by state parks created an opportunity for us to provide necessary resources that position the Commonwealth at an advantage for fighting the virus. Throughout the pandemic, Kentucky state parks remained open for outdoor daytime use only to allow Kentuckians access to outdoor recreation. Kentucky state parks also provided temporary housing for first responders and frontline healthcare workers. Some state parks were designated to provide temporary housing for low acuity patients and relieve pressure on hospitals. During the pandemic, our parks partnered with a few local schools to provide NTI support to children who are in need of internet access to complete educational instruction. Despite COVID-19 this past year, Kentucky experienced record-breaking numbers for hunting, fishing, golf, and camping, creating much-needed travel revenue. Kentucky saw an increase of travel, particularly in areas with access to lakes, camping, hunting, and therefore. After reopening in June last year, state park campgrounds occupancy was 41.9% through November of 2020, with 215,056 nights sold and over $6 million in revenue. In 2021, occupancy is 36%, despite closures of two of our most popular campgrounds, Fort Boonesboro and Green River Lake, due to flooding. And Fort Boonesboro, to note, is still closed and will open later this year. Kentucky State Parks room occupancy dropped from 38.9% in fiscal year 19 to 28.6% in fiscal year 20, but slightly recovered in 21 at 33.7%. Reservations on the books for future months indicate a healthy rebound in progress. State parks saw an increase in golf, with the number of rounds in fiscal year 21 up 81% at our 13 golf courses, despite Wasiato winds at Pine Mountain being closed for nearly the entire spring. So that's a big positive. Prior to COVID-19, group sales made up a large portion of our revenue. In 2019 and 20, parks generated nearly $4.3 million in revenue compared to $6.6 million for 2018 and 19. And as you can see, this is the slowest of our revenue segments to return. In 2020, food sales for state parks were nearly $8.7 million for fiscal year 20 compared to $12.8 million for fiscal year 19. Fiscal year 21 is currently at only $4.1 million through May. So we look for those numbers to come back as well. And with that said, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Adams and let him carry on with our presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'll talk about investing in Kentucky state parks. Throughout the pandemic, Kentucky state parks have continued efforts to modernize our park system through the Restoring the Finest initiative. This bipartisan commitment to enhance safety and improve aesthetics at Kentucky state parks has allowed us to focus our efforts on improving guest experiences and complete much-needed maintenance projects. Most recently, this critical funding has allowed us to enhance internet connectivity at many of our resort parks, including Lake Barkley, Natural Bridge, and Carter Caves. Access points have started to arrive for Dale Hollow and Lake Barkley, and COT plans to visit Dale Hollow the week of July 12th to start configuring and installing the access points. The purchase order was issued to the cabling vendor this week for the work at Lake Barkley to connect the room wings to the main data center. The wireless designs are complete for Ken Lake and Cumberland Falls. We have also implemented sewer and 50-amp electrical campground upgrades, along with new ADA campsites at many of our campgrounds. Moving to operational challenges. While we have continued our efforts to modernize our parks, this year has presented its share of challenges as well. This year we faced challenges at a few of our state parks, including the flooding that temporarily closed campgrounds at Green River Lake and Fort Boonesboro. We were hoping to have Fort Boonesboro reopened by August 1st, but due to delays in parts and needed supplies, that has been pushed back to at least September 1st. And of course, the closure of Wasiato winds as well, with the flooding at Pine Mountain. The increase in traveler demand for outdoor recreation has also presented safety concerns for our guests at the Pennyroyal Forest State Park Beach. due to overcrowding, we had to temporarily limit beach access to registered guests on the weekends. However, we are committed to working with state and local officials to find a long-term solution that will fully reopen the beach and ensure the safety of our patrons. Overcrowding at parks with hiking is also an issue, creating concerns related to resource management. This year, the lack of certified lifeguards has also created a challenge with opening some of our pools, like EP Tom Sawyer State Park in Louisville. We are actively recruiting staff in an effort to open this pool this summer, but have so far not been able to. Additionally, a structural deficiency was discovered at Jenny Wiley, forcing the temporary closure of the main lodge building while temporary bracing could be installed, which should be completed this week, and hopefully we'll be able to get back in there and get the main lodge building reopened. These unanticipated repairs, while challenging, are not uncommon for lodging and hospitality organizations. Fortunately, the staff at Jenny Wiley had a game plan, having just experienced a fire in the lodge a few years prior, so they knew exactly what to do when the lodge had to be closed. However, in order for us to be competitive in the tourism industry and continue to attract visitors to our parks, we must continue to invest and modernize our facilities. The future of parks will require a collaborative, bipartisan effort to ensure every corner of the Commonwealth feels the value that parks bring to the tourism industry. Looking ahead, our needs and desire to be competitive continues to grow. The modernization of state parks will require continued investment in general maintenance across our park system, including upgrades and repairs of signage, pools, campgrounds, dam safety projects, roads, and fitness facilities. We will continue to prioritize projects based on life safety, severity of need, and structural deficiencies. Investing in state parks is an investment in the tourism industry and is key to Kentucky having a competitive state park that attracts visitors from around the nation. How do we attract visitors to state parks? Promoting Kentucky as a diverse travel destination is part of our ongoing efforts to attract new, diverse travel markets to Kentucky and to our parks. Our marketing budget pre-COVID-19 was $425,000 annually and has remained flat during COVID. Currently, the department commits $300,000 annually to market and promote Kentucky state parks, and which also includes maintenance and updates to the park's website. Parks are marketed statewide in addition to border state travel markets. The other $125,000 in the budget is for printing of park brochures, golf brochures, and other print advertising. Our annual marketing efforts include TV, radio, Kentucky Living, and Kentucky Monthly magazines. Television ads are very limited due to the high cost. Social media marketing and promotion of state parks include Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. This year, our friends at the Department of Tourism included a picture of Cumberland Falls on the cover of the official visitor's guide, which serves as the state's primary tourism advertising and promotional piece. State parks have also been featured regularly in Kentucky Living magazine, as well as part of the My Southern Homes series. Outdoor recreation, particularly golf and camping, are a major part of our marketing efforts this year. One of our most current advertising needs is asset development. Updated video footage of parks in each season, diversity of photographs of updated facilities and amenities, all require an investment of our resources. These assets are also needed to provide photos to local tourism agencies in order for them to sell tourism to local communities and the markets they serve. While Kentucky state parks will not directly receive federal funding that was allocated to the Commonwealth for tourism marketing, like our tourism partners, we will see the benefit of the increased travel demand for Kentucky attractions. Any investment into the tourism industry, particularly efforts to market the state to new diverse travel markets, is a positive economic benefit for Kentucky.
I'll conclude with some positive news that we have to give you all, and then I guess we'll move into discussion and questions. We all know what a treasure we have with Kentucky, with our immense outdoor beauty that can be found at state parks across our Commonwealth. Many of our parks have have been voted best in Kentucky, including Dale Hollow, first place for golf course, Green River Lake State Park, first for camping spot. My old Kentucky home was inducted into Best of Kentucky Hall of Fame after being voted the #1 designation of historical landmark museum site for 3 consecutive years. As part of the special May edition dedicated to highlighting the Commonwealth's nationally recognized park system, 6 Kentucky state park managers shared their favorite spots for safe-cations that families of all ages can enjoy. Kentucky State Parks recently announced the grand opening of the newly renovated Golf Pro Shop at Lincoln Homestead State Park. The park features an 18-hole regulation golf course that displays the natural rolling hills of central Kentucky. The Pro Shop was renovated inside and out with new siding and landscaping that surrounds the building, as well as an updated layout of the customer service and merchandising space on the first floor. The newly renovated building features offices and a meeting space on the top floor that is available for rent. The building is also now ADA accessible. Some other positive news for our parks is the upcoming dedication ceremony for the renaming of Mineral Mound Golf Course in Eddyville, Kentucky, in memory of Cullen Brown. Remembered for his warmth, generosity, and oversized personality, Cullen was diagnosed with osteosarcoma in 2020. Prior to the diagnosis, Cullen was named to the SEC All-Freshman team and ended his rookie season with 4 top 20 finishes. While in high school, Cullen was also named our 2016 KHSAA Player of the Year for golf and was a 2-time runner-up for that honor. In August, we will join his family and members of the Lyon County community to celebrate the impact of his life on those on and off the course. So a lot of things that we have to look forward to, Mr. Chairman, and a lot of positive things going on. We're working hard. We got a great team. We're out there in our parks, seeing what's going on, seeing the people, and doing our best every day. So with that, we'll take questions and
Sure.
and any comments.
Well, Commissioner, I appreciate your all's presentation. Man, we are sure blessed here in the Commonwealth with some of the most beautiful parks in the entire country. And I've had the opportunity to travel to several different states in the last several years with my kids, and state parks are something we always try to stay at. And Kentucky, still, in my opinion, outdoes them all. And so it's exciting. And I know you're sitting in front of a committee and most everybody in the General Assembly who loves to see our parks be continually moving forward. We were talking out in the hallway a minute ago just about the amount of people that you see taking advantage of our outdoor facilities and camping and hiking and, Red River Gorge and all the different places we have across the state. And, something I would love to see us be able to do is, I know we have several dollars from the federal government that has flowed down to the state to use for different things. And I would love to see us continue to try to invest as a group of people here for the Commonwealth into our parks, growing our campsites and allowing more visitors to come during peak seasons and continue to take care of the thing the Lord's blessed us with here in the States. So at this time, I'm going to kind of open it up. If anybody's got comments or questions, if those who are online have anything, if you can use it through the portal app, would be wonderful. Representative Meyer, Representative Weber.
The other Russell.
Yeah, absolutely. Commissioner, thank you, and Deputy Commissioner, thank you, and Ms. Jones, thank you for being here today and presenting. I would agree with the chairman. We do have some great parks in this state, and I've tried to visit. I haven't been to all of them, but a few years ago we tried to do vacations where we were kind of staying within the state and taking advantage of the resources that we had here. In staying at one of the lodges at a park, one of the things I noticed was it was pretty dated. I commented to my wife, I now know what furnishing a place in 1972 looked like. So a question that I have for you is if you can give me some idea on the cost alone for updating the lodgings, if you have that. Maybe if you can come back in the future. As the chair said, I think when we invest in our resources, we see dividends paid on that, and we bring folks in, and I think we've got some real treasures in this state. But I do see that need, and I would be willing to say it's been a while since I've been back to that location, so it may have changed. And if it did, I'm great. But kind of what are we looking at in terms of our lodging? Because when folks come, they want to stay, they want to be comfortable, they want internet access. They look for they want the rustic yet nice at the same time. So do you have an idea that you can share with us?
Sure, and that's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. I'm guessing that you stayed somewhere prior to some of the Restoring the Finest money. I think if memory serves me correctly, about $8 million of that bond allocation was dedicated to hospitality upgrades, which would be updating the linens, the furnishings, the decor. The old floral bed linens are not in vogue anymore. People want to see the clean white triple sheeted. So we have implemented a lot of that. We have not done it across the system. I know anecdotally, some friends of mine in the insurance industry said they used to host some of their business meetings at our state parks, but his leadership saw what pathetic condition they were in and vowed never to come back. And especially now coming out of COVID, as group sales and that business travel segment that typically fills our beds between Sunday evening and Thursday afternoon when people start rolling in for leisure travel, that segment's not coming back. And we really need to be able to be aggressively positioned to offer a great product to those business community members who want to have their trainings, their conferences at our facilities. I don't have an exact cost on what that is at this time, but as I mentioned, also the marketing materials. We have to update our images of what our rooms look like. People get on Google and TripAdvisor and look at what the rooms look like before they book anything. And if we don't have those materials to put out there, if we don't have the photographers and the videographers to show the public what they're going to get before they get there, we're behind the eight ball. And so that is definitely a need of ours as we move forward.
Can I add to that too, Representative?
Absolutely.
You mentioned investment, and when we invest, we see results. But also, on the other hand, when we don't invest, we see results. And that's what Commissioner Adams has stated there. And Commissioner Adams always says that, our parks were 50 years old before we went into the recession. And then that's when we really stopped investing, and that's when they really needed the investment the most. So here we are 13 years later after the recession, and we are in dire need of investment. So thank you for mentioning that.
Would you have time over the course of the summer to come back to the General Assembly with kind of a more concrete number that? Because I approach it from the standpoint, if we say we need this amount of money to update the parks, that's kind of overwhelming especially with budget constraints. But if that number is a more workable number to do projects and improvements here and maybe here down the line, that may be something that would be more amenable to the General Assembly. And would you be in a position to come back later this year with a figure that would be a little more in line with what would be needed, taking in consideration the $8 million in other upgrades?
Absolutely. We're in the process of working through our capital needs list and submitting that through Capital Planning Oversight Board and through the Governor's Budget Office and that sort of thing. We do have a more detailed list of what we anticipate our needs are. I just don't have that in front of me today, but we could certainly get that to you prior to session as it works through the process.
I'll follow up with. I've got one more question, then I won't dominate the day. I'm not necessarily advocating when I ask this question for privatization of the state parks. Have you looked at maybe with the lodging or food or some other aspect of the park system, working with private industry on a collaboration to help? Has that been looked at? Is that an option that you've studied? And if so, I would like to see some of that research if it's available.
Sure. We have not dug down into that a whole lot over the past year that we've been in these roles with COVID. From my prior service in the tourism cabinet, I'm aware of some of those discussions having taken place. There are a couple of major hurdles to privatization of the lodges. One being that most of our parks were established with funding from the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which permanently restricts the property for outdoor recreation in perpetuity. So for private investors, that's a little bit of a hurdle for them to agree to take that on. Also, we are in a sector that the private sector doesn't directly engage in. You know, we operate at a different level. We're more accessible to the public than some of the large private resorts, and so the cost benefit proposition isn't quite there for the private sector. We have a limited window of operations, that sort of thing. There may be some opportunities to explore in the future, and we do have private partners in some of our operations. We have some concessionaires that operate our larger marinas, some of the food retail locations, snack shacks, sorts of things. But we continue to look for ways to explore private partnerships.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Representative Russell Weber, thank you for that. I want to follow up with one of the questions that Representative Weber had when we talk about the funding. Being the budget subcommittee here, when we talk about economic development and tourism and the environment, I mean, the parks touch all three of those. And so something we'd like to do, and I'll say from the Senate side, we're going to really dive in deeper with these budget subcommittees to try to get into the details of some of these budgets. And so one of the things I would like to request back from you all before going into the next session, if you guys can start to look at some of those improvements, repairs, and even categorize them from a must need to a kind of a wish list, I guess you could say. And maybe we'll have another 30-minute presentation towards the end of the year to kind of go over that in some details. Because we all know that the economic development that comes from people coming to the state and the people inside of the state that utilize our parks. And so if we can invest into our future and get a return on our investment, that's sure what we want to do. So do we have any other questions? Representative Hale, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner. In my previous employment several years ago, working 30 years with Fish and Wildlife, traveled the state extensively and have been to just about every state park there is. And at that time, the facilities was beautiful. I mean, you couldn't find a better motel anywhere in those communities to stay in. But they have deteriorated. We all know that. We realize that. But I am glad to see funding that is with improvements, and one just specifically in my district, I think maybe one of the best in the state, a great treasure, Natural Bridge State Park. Of course, we have the gorge area there as well. But there have been several improvements on Natural Bridge State Park over the last few years, and I don't know the numbers, you probably do, but I think it's greatly increased the room, people staying there in the room numbers, visiting the park, and something that was, and I don't mean to pit one administration against another, but even going back, just improvements on access to the park. There was a road that was going into Natural Bridge. It was a one-lane road. Basically, the bridge had fell apart through the Department of Transportation and some help there. And that greatly increased people coming to this one certain area of that of that Natural Bridge Park. So I'm like the other people that have made statements here. Our investments in these parks are going to pay off. They certainly are going to pay off. And I'm like the chairman. I think from both of the Senate and the House side, we certainly need to look for as much monies as we can possibly find to invest in these, because they are really treasures in this state. And I think they have a great economic impact if we can improve them. We know we're not going to be able to improve them all at one time, but I think every dollar that we can invest in there would be a great economic boom to our state. And then just one other question, Commissioner. Did you say there's 13 of these parks that have golf courses? Was I correct on that? Is that what you said?
That is correct, yes.
And I know that the golf industry, and I love to play golf. I don't get to play a lot, but I know the golf industry as a whole is even struggling. It's been struggling for 20 years. How much do we really invest and spend on our golf courses at these state parks? And I know there's a lot of people comes to these state parks to play golf, and there's some really nice courses on some of them. I've played a lot of them. But is that something that we really need to continue to look at, or could we maybe utilize monies in a better area?
Well, our golf courses, all of them are revenue generators.
Okay.
And when this Representative Weber nailed it earlier, when we invest, we see results, and when we don't, we see results. And, some of our top golf courses are now, 20 years old, built in the early 2000s. And, they are elite golf courses. And when you go to them, you will see that we're in a slow process of redoing sand traps. Some of these golf courses, they were really built with too many sand traps on them. I mean, 60 to 90 sand traps on them. I mean, that's a lot of sand traps to take care of. It's a lot of maintenance. It's a lot of expense, but it is a look on the golf course, and to get that return customer, you have to have them in good shape, especially an upper level golf course. But we have golf courses at all levels, to accommodate, a golfer, at any level and at any price point. So, we have to continue to reinvest in our golf courses. And a lot of it's the things you don't see. You don't see irrigation, and what you need to invest in that. You see a pretty golf course, but that's the things that you don't see. And you may have, a golf course like my old Kentucky home that needs a $500,000 in irrigation, refurb, just upgrade. I mean, we've got, when we were down at KDV earlier in the year, and you don't see this at a lot of golf courses, they go out and they stick quick couplers in the ground to water their fairways. I mean, that's high maintenance to do that. That upgrade has to be made, and that, could be somewhere in a, $500,000 range. So, to keep our golf courses and our revenue generators going, and when you talk about parks, it's quality of life. It's the representation of our state. It's a tool in the toolbox for the communities that have the parks to, for attractions, for businesses, and to bring economic development into our state, and to, tell a company of, 50 employees come in or 500 employees come in, look, this is what we have in our community, and this is what, we can bring to your people. And we've got the workforce, but we've got these golf courses, we've got these lodges, we've got these parks, and we have to continue to reinvest. And I'm really excited about this discussion that we're having. And I know Commissioner Adams and Danielle and BR, we've been talking this for the last 8 months. I mean, there's a lot of things out there in our parks. They're not ribbon cutting type deals. They're things that you don't see that we have to do. I mean, who would have known that we would have had to close Jenny Wiley, the main lodge area there, but it had an infrastructure failure, and a safety, precaution that we had to go in and close it. And, it's about $1.5 million $2.5 project to bring it back up and get it open back up. But I'm just really excited about this discussion that we're willing to discuss and look at and bring to the table, what we need to invest. So.
And if I can jump in on the golf question in particular, coming into this role just over a year ago, frankly, I was a little bit skeptical of our investment in golf courses. Our cost per dollar of revenue was in the mid $2 range, meaning we were heavily subsidizing each round of golf. Golf course costs about the same to operate, regardless of how many players you have on the course. Well, with the surge related to COVID, but I think it's here to stay, much like some of the increase in camping we've seen, our costs are now getting down close to $1. We're in the low to mid dollar per cost of dollar of revenue range. And I think included in that is our high personnel costs. Obviously with us making the pension contribution payments for our employees, it greatly increases our cost of people. So like Commissioner was saying, with our bunkers requiring lots of maintenance, we're making smart investments. When we go in and redo the bunkers, we're putting in a new type of liner that requires a whole lot less maintenance. We're converting our greens and our tee boxes to grass species that take less fertilizer, less watering, that make more sense in this difficult climate. So we're being smart about reducing our expenses while providing an exceptional product. And frankly, at a lot of these parks, the golf course is the driver to that course. You take the course away, and that tourism impact is going to dry up. Your Dale Hollows, your Kentucky Dam Village, Lake Barkley, Mineral Mounds. Those are real drivers for those communities. And we have a couple of courses in Eastern Kentucky that I think we need to do a better job of marketing and making those a driver for those communities as well.
Can I just real quickly, and I know that on golf courses, and I've talked to several owners of golf courses, and they always share with me, well, we have to have X amount of rounds. We have to have this many thousands of rounds played just to break even. Do you have a number? Is there a number you have on that?
We don't have the break-even number. You'll notice one of our slides was inaccurate because we were scrambling to get information as the fiscal year was concluding. Our number of rounds played was up 81% this year, 81%. And that has made going into our budgeting process for this next fiscal year. I've spent nearly the whole last month meeting with park managers and planning their budget for the next year. And that increase in golf revenue has really enabled them to make decisions to better their park, to operate it more efficiently, because that 81% difference, their costs haven't changed. That's all just padded revenue that they can then reinvest in their hospitality and their dining facilities, those sorts of improvements that these parks need and have been missing.
That's really good. I'm glad to hear that, and thank you all for that. And keep investing in them. We'll try to do our part if we can. But
Yes,
they are a great tool here in our state. There. Thank you, Commissioner.
And I'll add, Representative, also, when the planning to build a lot of these golf courses was put in play, they were put there as a tool for that community to be able to promote and bring economic development to their community. So, it's with a lot of these golf courses, they are off the beaten path. They're not, they were not put in places, they're destination courses. So, ones that have good locations are going to produce more rounds, obviously. Ones off the beaten path, we've got to draw them in and attract them in. So they've got to be in great shape. So, we're still striving to get them to break even, and we're doing a good job of that. Our team out there is doing a fantastic job of that, but we have to reinvest to have that opportunity. So thank you.
Commissioner, I got a follow-up question, just kind of as we talk about the budget review and we start planning for next year. We know it takes hard work, and a lot of money to make these things go around. Can you, and you might have already shared this in your presentation, but can you share with how much federal assistance you all received from the COVID-19 pandemic monies from the federal government? Do you all have that number?
We don't have that in front of us today, but we'd be happy to get it to you.
Yeah, if you can get that
Share
to
with
us,
some-
that would really help us in the process as well, just kind of knowing how much money is coming in from different directions as we start this process. So,
And I will add that most of what we got was in contribution for those parks that we took offline in reserve for low acuity housing, first responder housing.
Okay.
It was kind of a make-up payment for holding those offline for those purposes.
okay, all right. Any other questions from any members or anybody online? Looks like that is it. So we appreciate your.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Oh, Chairman Beckler, go ahead.
Thank you. If you'll indulge me, actually, I have a few questions. Follow up to the chairman's comment about federal money. Did I understand correctly that you said there were some federal funds that were sent to different states for tourism, and we didn't get any? And if I understood correctly, why didn't Kentucky get any of those funds?
Mr. Chairman, who was the question directed at? Sorry, I think we got
That anybody who wants to answer,
I'll be happy.
Okay.
it makes no difference to me. I consider that they're all in agreement and can answer whatever question that they think. So
Chairman
go
Beckler,
for it, guys.
I'm happy to answer that. My point was not that the Commonwealth did not receive those federal funds. The Department of Parks did not receive those. The Department of Tourism did. They would be better positioned. I don't know, Danielle, if you have $5 million, I think.
Yeah, there was
In a
$5 million
couple of-
CARES funding. That's for
Turn your microphone on. So that's being spent, I believe, in 9 different marketing regions and to target some specific communities to try to bring in new tourism into the state.
But we weren't included in that that particular funding, correct?
We, as the Department of Parks, were not, but Kentucky was. The Department of Tourism has 2 pools of $5 million and $2.8 million, if I'm not mistaken, that they will be using.
Okay. Tag teaming to Representative Weber's questions and the questions and comments and the chairman's. When you can you put together, when you're working on your budget request, can you put down the time, the specifics of where the money is going to go and the timeline before it is the work is completed?
Yes, we will absolutely do our best to do that. Of course, as material prices and construction costs are fluctuating wildly, our ability to say specifically what each project will cost and what its timeline would be with the uncertainty of what funding we may get is a guess. But we will do our best to limit or to specify that in our budget request.
Yeah, well, any timeline or budget request is always a guess based on the facts that you have at your hands at the time. I'm specifically interested in broadband access at all of the state parks and ADA access at all of the state parks. I would really like to see, if you could provide it, what the cost estimate is and the timeline to get both of those completed, especially in as quick a fashion as possible. Can you do that for us?
Yes, sir, absolutely. And I will note that we are pretty far along with broadband, with the Restoring the Finest money. Quite a bit of that was earmarked for broadband capacity, and we were able to, with a couple of different funding sources, some of the Kentucky Wired projects going on, loop some of those in, and also the private sector is providing much more broadband access across the state, whether because of Kentucky Wired or other reasons. But we're finding more opportunities to connect to those at our parks. We are, ADA is certainly something we need to improve, and we're required to do so whenever we undertake a project. But, we would like to expand those opportunities so that we're accessible for the entire population of the Commonwealth and the visitors to it as well.
I understand what you said about moving forward with broadband, but maybe you and I have a different perspective on how quickly that is happening. Getting to golf. Since we're losing money every time, as I understand it, and I'm counting on you to correct me if that's a misunderstanding on my part. Has there been any consideration to shutting down a few of those golf courses? I know we've shut down some in the past, but some of the ones that were maybe in remote areas where you're not pulling a lot of people, my guess is, and it's only a guess, that if you closed some of those, you're not going to dramatically affect the people who are coming to the park anyway, because if the golf courses are as remote and as poor as I took you to say, it seems to me that it wouldn't have a dramatic effect on the tourism to those state parks anyway, because those people are going for a specific reason other than golf. If you disagree with me, fine, tell me. But I was just wondering if you ever took a look at that, and any of the money that's going to golf courses, maybe just working on the ones where it really draws people.
Point taken on your question, Representative, and understand that wholeheartedly, as I spent 14 years of my life in the golf business and know how hard it is to operate one in the black, because a high percentage of golf courses out there are operating in the red. Not only, parks golf courses, but, golf courses in general out there. It's a struggle, and, a lot of people that make them work have all the money in the world, and, it's kind of their little hobby, or it's a country club, and they can send an assessment out to their members. And public golf is not easy. I believe we have closed down most of the 9-hole courses. I believe we have one now that is open. John James Audubon is still open. But as I said, you could take an elite golf course that cost several $1 million to build, that was put in a place. Arthur Hills is your designer of that golf course, and it was put in a place that in a hard to get remote area, but they built that golf course as a draw to that community to promote. So I don't know that you can put a number on the economic impact in a community that golf course or that asset to that community can hold there. So, there's a lot to be discussed in that equation for any of the golf courses out there. But Commissioner Adams, stated golf is up, and I firmly have a good feel that it's back, and it's back to stay. And we've been through a downturn since probably the 2004 to 2006 6 years, and it's been on a downturn since. But golf is on an uptick. So it's what we do. And how we invest in our golf courses to set them up for success for the future too. So I think we have to discuss that part of it too, and that's what I'm sure we're going to be getting into at a later part this year, and that's why I'm so excited about this discussion. But we have to you have to always take your question as closure and discuss it. But, on the other end, there's a big uptick and a lot of opportunity out there. So I really I don't see any of the golf courses that we have in our state right now in the discussion for closure.
I agree. And with some smart investments, some of those courses will be better positioned to do more business. Several of our courses don't even have a driving range, which makes them unattractive for hosting even small tournaments. So with a small investment of a relatively inexpensive driving range, now you've opened up a huge market for it. And that's drawing people in for tournaments, putting heads in beds in local hotels. People are going to local restaurants. That's part of our mission, is to drive tourism into our local economies. And that's what we aim to do.
I understand that. I'm just concerned that we're not like some of the private golf courses that were mentioned, where we have all the money in the world. We have a very small portion of the money in the world, and we have to spend it wisely, not only on, economic development, tourism, etc. But I think we have to be very focused on what is the economic impact. And when we as the legislature are asked for money, we're always given, well, this is the economic impact to the local community, etc. Now, as a side note, I think all those estimates are always overrated. But I really do believe that we have to take a hard, critical look. And if the golf course, as an example, or if whatever it is, I'm not trying to pick on golf courses per se, but whatever it is that is costing more than we're getting out of it, I think we, for the best interest of the taxpayers of the state, we in the Commonwealth need to take that in consideration. And you can't simply reinvest, throw bad money after good. So I'm concerned that all the requests for money that we get is really we're doing things, and not just from you all, but we're doing things that is really not in the best financial interest of the Commonwealth. So thank you for your responses. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for indulging me with my few questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So at this time, I think that sums up our questions and comments, and I really appreciate you all coming and presenting today. It's exciting to see what we're doing here at our parks and hopefully continue to do more. Members, the next meeting will be August the 4th on Wednesday at 9 a.m. Chairman Beckler will be chairing that meeting, and we look forward to seeing everybody back.